Welcome, guys, to White Bear Studios Future Unicorn Sessions. This week, we're meeting with Liam White, the co-founder of Dr. Will's. I've been seeing your name pop up quite a lot in the London food space recently, so I'm delighted to have you here, Liam. Now, before I hand things over, I wanted to just give a brief intro to White Bear Studio. We are a creative branding agency in London, but with clients worldwide. Our common thread through all of our clients is a bravery to disrupt and grow. And great ideas take a tribe. So over the past few months, we've been building a community of future unicorns for brands who are brave, creative, and disruptive with purpose. Our Future Unicorn community gets access to thought leadership content, weekly webinars with industry experts, and ones like this, and also the chance to brainstorm with other brand leaders. So if you're watching this, you're more than welcome to join. You can find the link to apply on our Instagram or Twitter. And in conjunction with this community, we've also been offering exclusive one-to-one brand brainstorm sessions with our creative team to chat through your brand strategy, visual identity, and campaign calendar. They're 45-minute sessions, and they're currently free in the hopes of providing a bit of COVID relief. And applications for these as well are open. So again, check out our Instagram and Twitter for more info, or if you are a Future Unicorns member, just ping me on Slack for more details. But with all of that out of the way, I'll hand it over to Dr. Wills.
Perfect, thank you. And just checking, you can see the slides okay?
Yeah.
Before I start, perfect. Great, thanks very much for the introduction. Very flattering to be involved, especially when the name is Future Unicorns. Yeah, I was going to talk a little bit about the Dr. Will's story from sort of where we started through to where we are now, and then talk a little bit about the last 6 months that have been choppy for everybody, and how some of the things that we've done to try and adapt. So Dr. Will's was started back in 2016, founded by myself and two others, Will and Josh. We all had completely different backgrounds. So Will is a medical doctor, hence the name of our business, Dr. Will's. Josh is, at the time, was a restaurateur, so he was running a restaurant up in Newcastle. And then I was working in investment banking, so completely different. And my mum's a food writer, so that was my way in. As a doctor, Will was looking at condiments, specifically from a health point of view. So his mum's a nursery school teacher, and they were together were seeing the parents of the children trying to get their kids to eat their greens, their broccoli, and we're seeing that they were putting mainstream sugary ketchup on them to try and get the kids to eat them. Josh at the same time was running this restaurant. It's quite a trendy sort of gastropub sort of concept. It was in Jesmond in Newcastle called Jam Jar, and they had locally sourced, lots of locally sourced food, locally sourced meats, brioche from the local bakery. It was all kind of around provenance and quality of food. And then the one thing he felt was sort of laying the side down was the condiments on the table. So Will and Josh got talking, and kind of coming at it from two angles, the sort of health angle, but also this kind of, there's nobody who's got a brand with, integrity of ingredients, healthier, but also something that looks great on your, restaurant table, kitchen table. Same time, they met in 2016 and spent about a year sort of developing the products, getting ideas together. I met Will. He came down to London to do a PhD, and that gave him a couple of years where he was outside. He's a reconstructive surgeon, so normally he's scrubbed up, operating all day. So that gave him a bit of time when he wasn't doing that, and had time to focus more on the business. And that's when I met him, when I was in investment banking, looking for something more interesting to do. I think I'd done a few years of banking and realized that I'd always wanted to start my own business, and I just missed the kind of, I wanted to do something entrepreneurial, to be feel like I was making a difference, really. So I started talking to Will. We got on well, met Josh, and the three of us decided to really have a go at condiments, making healthier condiments. So the first batches we made were in Will and Josh's restaurant kitchens, and we made some a real mix of stuff. So some of the stuff we made initially was terrible. Interestingly, our first product was we launched 3 products together. So a ketchup, tomato ketchup, a beetroot ketchup, and a barbecue sauce. The beetroot ketchup actually came about as a complete accident. So we were trying to make ketchup with real tomatoes, and we noticed that the color was really orangey rather than the kind of red color that you expect from a ketchup, because we were using real tomatoes, and we were using less tomato paste and more real tomatoes. So we decided to add, we're like, how can we naturally get a redder color to the product? So we added some beetroot, and we added far too much, and it tasted really beetrooty, but it tasted great. And that was kind of the genesis of our beetroot ketchup. And so we started off in the restaurant kitchens. This is 2016. We got to a point where we had a product that we were relatively happy with, and then Will and Josh went to do a market up in Newcastle, and I think the moment that we knew we were on something was we had by this point we found a small jam producer who was able to make a few hundred bottles for us, because we just weren't kitted out to be able to do it in the restaurant kitchen. And he had the bottles, he had the labels, he had the capper, and we could get it all done a bit more professionally. So we had these couple of hundred bottles made of ketchup, and then sold them on in a market in Newcastle. And Will and Josh were on the stall, and it was a rainy day in Newcastle. We managed to sell 200 bottles to Geordie's on a rainy day, and I think that was the point where we're like, okay, there's something here. People are interested in this. So that was 2016, and then about Feb 2017 was when we formally sort of we got a manufacturer on board and launched the business and started selling outside of the market stores, or selling into retail. We started off selling into independents largely. So we got a couple of local delis, farm shops on board. I remember our first ever invoice being just pen and paper and scanned in and saved down on the drive somewhere. And occasionally when I'm going through the drive and look over that, it gives me a smile, sort of looking back to those days. So we started off with these lots of sort of local stores, and then we got a couple of wholesalers on board, which was a sort of a big win at that stage, because it then means that you've almost got, you spread your wings. As a small business, there's only a couple of you, and when you have a wholesaler and you're in their catalog, then it means that people are you're benefiting from a bit of scale, and people seeing the shops are looking through the brochures and seeing what products are available, and then they come across your product and pick it up. And that's probably the first time that we sold product that wasn't physically, we hadn't called up the shop or turned up ourselves. And we did a lot of that in the early days. We'd go sort of in London, we'd do field sales, and we'd be out and just, we'd make a list on Google Maps of 20 stores, go in, meet the manager, and just try and sell door to door, and then either sell it to them directly, or if they work with one of our wholesalers, we'd then sort of send the order through to our wholesaler and they process it. So that was a first little kind of breakthrough. And then in the summer of 2017, we launched into Selfridges, and that was the first point where we could tell people that Dr. Will's was available in places that you might have heard of, which was awesome for us. So yeah, got into Selfridges. I remember that was super exciting for us, and I remember they placed a reorder on the first day, because we sold through a whole lot. We got everybody we knew, friends and family down. We sampled the products as much as we could in those early days, and we just every day we'd be out tasting stations. Me, Will, Josh. We had a couple in the team by that point. Everyone would just be down sampling and just trying to get the product into people's hands. So yeah, Selfridges first little breakthrough in 2017. And then after that, we launched onto Ocado and into a few other sort of the more premium places. So the likes of Harvey Nichols, Planet Organic in 2018. I think Ocado was a really sort of big moment for us, because I guess it's the first time we were technically sold in a supermarket. And it also meant that we, not quite national, but we had real reach across the country. People could always buy the product on our website, and we started off available on our website, and we used to have Will's mum doing all the packing up in Newcastle. And but being on Ocado meant that people who were doing their grocery shop would be able to pick up our products and buy it as part of that. And I think one of the things about our product is that it is it's a grocery product, and you look at some of these like direct consumer success stories, and there is absolutely a market for people buying condiments. Yeah, I think so. One of the things about a ketchup direct to consumer is it's a product that people will buy online, but with a grocery product, it's very hard, and there's very few examples of brands that have been able to sell successfully direct to consumer and just do that as a part of a business. So it's always been our strategy early on to get into retailers. So getting into Ocado was a big moment for us. I think it's a good time to kind of siphon into our product and talk a little bit more about that before I talk more about kind of how we've grown. So in terms of what we do, we've got a range of 10 products now, and started off with the 3. So we started off with ketchup, beetroot, barbecue, and it was this realization that there's 19 cubes of sugar in a single bottle of ketchup, and we just thought, enough is enough. We want to give people a reason to buy something healthier. So and early on, we knew we didn't have any aspirations to be kind of a high-priced, expensive, posh brand. We just wanted to offer people a healthier alternative to sort of the mainstream ketchup, but equally really important that we're making good food great. So our slogan is makes food better, and we think about that as tastier, better for you, and better for the planet. And the role of a condiment is really important to remember. The role of ketchup, mayonnaise, barbecue sauce, the reason you add it is because it adds flavor to your plate. So if you can make the healthiest sauce in the world, but if it's not adding flavor, then you're not gonna use it. You're not gonna buy it again. So that was something that was in our minds early on. And then this is more relevant as we moved away from Ocado, a key sort of partner of ours, and big part of our growth. But we saw that we knew that we had to, at the same time, get into the retail stores. And we knew there was a huge disruption opportunity. So it's very interesting in food and drink. You get some markets are 1 or 2 brand dominated. Others are much more fragmented. So we saw, when we were starting up the business, we saw that we'd seen kind of brands like Propercorn who were disrupting the snack category, and we'd seen that go from kind of crisps and chocolate that everybody was eating, and then suddenly people were eating popcorn, which is lower calorie, much healthier, eating things like olives, eating chickpea snacks, all sorts of different puffs and all sorts of different things. So we saw all of that innovation, and then we'd seen brands like we've seen Brewdog in beer, we'd seen Fever Tree in mixers, and all of those kind of, and that's a good example of a category that was just before that. It was just pretty much Schweppes in tonic, and then Fever Tree came through and really sort of disrupted. So we saw there's a huge opportunity for that. There aren't that many of those markets left, where it's very much, if you go into a supermarket store and you look at the lineup in ketchup and mayonnaise, you've got Heinz in ketchup, make up pretty much all of it, and then you've got own label, supermarket own label, and then you've got a few small niche suppliers that are in there, taking up a very small amount of space. And then same with mayonnaise. Mayonnaise is kind of split between Heinz and Hellmann's in the UK, and then you've got again a few smaller suppliers, but they get very little shelf space and can't really cut through. So we saw there was an opportunity to really try and do that, and to try and get some space, get in and have bold packaging that really catches people's attention. We know that there's a real change in consumer landscape, and I think this has only been accelerated with COVID. So people are trying to move away from hidden sugar. 28% of adults think they eat too much sugar. 51% trying to avoid high sugar foods. So people are trying to be healthier. We know that millennials are want to buy from brands that they care about. 9 in 10 switch to brands associated with the cause. We're in the process of becoming a B Corp, for example, and that's something that I think people are starting to take a lot more notice and think about why they're purchasing things, and the brands that they're purchasing from and what they stand for. And then we know that the biggest driver in condiments specifically of people paying a bit more for them is low sugar, low calorie, low fat, so health related reasons. And then, yeah, we know that people essentially pay more for products with the clear USP. So we've seen great example of in ice cream, guys like Halo Top in the US. There's Breyers and other brands in the UK that are doing it, but have really kind of taken ice cream, something that you think of as pure indulgence, and then they've made a product that tastes great, but they just put the calories right on the front, 350 calories per pint. And then suddenly you've got this product that you only have, once every month or something for a real treat, but you now feel that, okay, I could have that weekly because, it's not that bad for me. It's only 350 calories. So they did a really good job of that. Fever Tree mentioned previously, things like granola muesli, kind of traditionally loaded with sugar. Same with normal breakfast cereal. And then you get brands like Lizzie's that have come through and really cleaned it up and just use fruit. And then peanut butter is a great one as well. Gone from kind of brands like Sunpat with palm oil in there, with added sugar in there, and then you get brands like Whole Earth, Manulife, Pip and Nut, who have come through and made much cleaner versions. So going back onto kind of the grocery story, so we launched into once we launched in Ocado in April. We then started trying to get into mainstream grocery, and that took us a while. So while we were working on that, and I think one of the things about the kind of the mainstream grocery market is that you're often you're in the hands of one or two people. So there's normally one buyer for condiments. So there's someone that you've got to impress, and if you're it takes a while to make an impression on those people, and these people often move around a lot as well. So you might spend some time sort of pitching to one person, but then they move to another category, and then you've got to start again. So there's that dynamic that you've got to play. And then the other thing we realized was this was in sort of 2018, summer of 2018, after launching into Ocado, that we realized we just weren't addressing the whole market, and that outside of sort of we were selling online, and then we were selling in kind of these independent stores, we were missing the whole kind of food service element. So there was cafes, delis, and then there was contract catering, selling to offices, universities, schools. Even there was all sorts of stuff that we weren't doing. So we started putting a real focus into that, because we wanted to be at any place where you'd consume ketchup with a meal was a target for us initially. And I think probably one of the things that we've done more as we've grown is to actually refine back from that and not just try and be everywhere, because it's very difficult, especially with a really small team, to be able to do all of those things well. But back then we saw it as a huge opportunity and started approaching food service. And interestingly, we got into lots of nice sort of trendy cafes and delis, but where we were seeing real sort of uptake was in offices, universities, and those sort of contract catered sites. And it's a bit of it's a real learning curve to work with them, because you have to work with a food service wholesaler, and then they will ship the product to the sites. And then there's all sorts of complexities about sort of how that works financially. There are also our product is very different in the food service world versus like a snack or a drink, because if you work in one of those offices or in a university, you would pay for a drink, you'd pay for your snacks, but the ketchup would be included. Ketchup's free, and essentially you buy a meal, you can have as much ketchup as you want. So because of that, the sites were really price sensitive, so it was hard work for us to convince people to pay more for our product. But the health sell was huge there, because all of these sites had gone from, they kind of copied what was happening in the supermarkets, but you had all these offices, universities had gone from, when I was at university, it was crisps and chocolate and overall not great food. Whereas when we went to Reading University, which is the first university that took us on, totally different situation. You go in there and it's amazing. They had all sorts of loads of healthy products, kombuchas, flavored sparkling water, all of that sort of stuff. So the whole landscape had changed, and we were starting to get our products in there, and that was starting to move really well. So we scaled that up. going into 2019. And that was a big part of our strategy for most of last year, whilst we were sort of still selling through as independent, selling online and working on getting into mainstream retail. And then we realized that we hadn't cut through at that point, and we hadn't got into the mainstream retail. And we also realized that when we did, we needed to do something different. And there's lots of brands out there that are in the world of kind of posh ketchup. And there's, farm shop ketchup and things like that. But we wanted to be disruptive. We wanted to be bold, and we wanted to really use color. And we have the exclamation mark icon, which is kind of, the oldest way of telling people to stop and think, which is in our packaging. But we knew that we needed to change something. So we launched this rebrand here earlier this year. And we've had a really amazing response to it. And when it's out on shelf now, the products really stand out. And we knew that we'd have a fraction of the shelf space of some of the big guys. So we needed to make our packaging really, really work for us. And I think it's really starting to do that now. And since we've launched that, we've launched into Tesco and Waitrose, which has been a real game changer for us. In terms of we've always worked really hard with a couple of areas of marketing activity, and one of those has been PR. So we've been sort of lucky to feature in Telegraph, Daily Mail, Times, Guardian, like lots of national press, and that side of things has really helped to sort of add credibility to our story, and I think people really resonate, particularly with Will and the doctor, and that side of things, and the founder story. So it's been great to sort of get that out across lots of touch points. And then the other place that's been really important for us has been social media, because we've from the very beginning, we've been able to reach an audience, and we realized early on that it's very expensive to sample your product to lots of people across the country, but we can reach loads of people on social media, and it's definitely getting harder today with kind of the changes in the algorithms and much more of a push towards paid. But online remains like a key channel for us to be able to reach people and reach the right people who are interested in buying for smaller brands, interested in health. And the last kind of thing I was going to talk about is the supermarket launches and COVID. So coming into 2020, we were very food service focused. So probably about half of our business was selling into these cafes, delis, universities, offices, etc. And then obviously COVID struck, and then we had our last order that was due in March that we were about to ship cancelled. And then since then, we've barely done any food service volume. We've sold to a couple of independent cafes and delis, but beyond that, we haven't had anything really. So that completely fell away. And then we were also fundraising, which was tricky going into COVID. So initially, it was kind of mass panic for us. How can we? And we were conscious that we needed to move quickly, and that was kind of the way that we'd get through the 6 months. So we started thinking, and we knew we needed to sort of keep working hard on the retail side of the business, because that's not going to go away. People still need to eat, but they're not eating out in restaurants and cafes. They're not at work, but they're eating at home. So we knew that was important. We scaled up online initially, and we were seeing really good volume growth in Amazon, and that's something that we still push really hard. And then we had to sort of look at our cost base and try and cut that back, and really any non-essential spend we'd have to remove, and make sure that we could justify every penny that was going out of the business, because those invoices we just didn't know in the early panic days. We just weren't sure if they were going to get paid, so we had to be super careful there. And then I guess a real stroke of luck was that we'd been working on Tesco and Waitrose, and been talking to them we've been talking to them since we started, but intensely from sort of the Christmas 19, and then Waitrose took on our ketchup in May, in the middle of the lockdown period, which was a huge boost for us. And then we launched more formally with Waitrose with 3 products in August, and then the same with Tesco. We launched with 5 products in August. So we were extremely fortunate to have those two launches come in at the right time. And we've really pivoted our business towards retail, and been able to sort of change from being kind of quite heavy food service, heavily sort of, doing lots of online, which we still do, but moved all of our focus into retail. And we will come back into being sort of more omnichannel, but at the moment it's full focus on retail. And I think being able to do that and being able to, shift the team across and have the resource to do it, change sort of the marketing strategy, has saved us. And I think we were talking before this, but I think being small is a real virtue in these kind of situations, and we'd always want to be in a position. We've got a huge long way to go, but we'd always want to be in a position where we're small enough to be able to react to these things, because I think that's absolutely crucial. Anyway, that's everything, I think.
Thank you so much, Liam. I'm sorry I kind of interrupted you in the middle there,
No.
but it's just a joy to hear the Dr. Wills story, and I'm excited to see how the journey continues. I can see big growth plans ahead of you, so it'll be a joy to watch it.
Awesome.
If you guys do have any questions for Dr. Wills or Liam, you can connect with him on LinkedIn or on the Future Unicorn Slack community. And if you enjoyed this, do have a look at our YouTube channel for other videos. Thank you again.